Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 290, how Zia got her feedback, recorded on Friday, February 16th, 2024, from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Tyler Colt.
And I'm Greg Belnap, and let's get right on into the show.
Let us do it. Brett is out this week. He is out in Vegas finalizing buying a house out there. He wanted to move out of California. I think his previous landlord selling the house that he used to live in. So he thought, hey, let's give myself a big old discount on state income tax. And Nevada was a prime choice. So Greg, thanks for filling in this week.
Yeah, and he will now be just 2 hours south of me. So Brett and I, we're going to be hanging out a lot more now. We're just going to,
Sunday dinners at Greg's house.
Yep, that's right.
All righty. And with that, let us jump right on into announcements and events. We really could just call this segment events. Most of the time, we don't have many announcements. The last one was for our ZenMe Awards, but last year. But jumping into upcoming events, next week on, I think it's Tuesday, the Zoho Recruit full product overview will be going live. That was recorded here from Greg. Really excited to get that out for you. I think the last one we did was a 2022 or 2021, so it's been a little while since we've covered Recruit. There have been a lot of changes and improvements to the application. And then as always, we'll have a CRM Zen Show basically going on every week. Just as a reminder, we did change the Azaz format, so it's going to be back to one video a week, just covering one question in detail. So make sure to check those out. And then next month, right now, it looks like we're doing a Zoho Vault webinar, unless we change our minds. You never know. That will be going live on March 19th. So keep an eye out for that. Make sure to secure that date in your calendar and make sure that you don't miss it. In terms of Zoho events, they are kind of back in action. There was a little time period where they weren't doing a lot of them. But so they've got some CRM Plus customer experience workshops, looks like East Coast, Chicago, New York, and Miami. They've got a Zoho Show presentation, hopefully run via Zoho Show. I've never seen them do a show event, but yeah, it's PowerPoint with a couple less features. Zoho Bookings and Flow, kind of lots of different Zoho events coming up. To see all of those, make sure to come on over here to Club Zenatta at club.zenatta.com and sign up. Nothing that you have to pay for, just an email address so we can confirm that you're not a robot, right, trying to get onto the platform.
Yep.
And then we'll go to our sad other events category. Nothing there. If anyone out there in the ether of the internet is doing a Zoho event, let us know. Other partners, whoever, we will promote it. It's not a competitive space. We just like to promote anything that people are doing. I don't know if we've ever had an other event on here, so let us know. We will
dare to dream.
Publicize it. Yeah, dare to dream. Exactly. Alrighty, and with that, let us jump right on into the news. All right, pretty normal looking news week here. We are starting on a post that Raju Vignesa made over on X, currently known as Twitter. So they have opened
the way around
on
Twitter, currently known as X.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we'll strike that, reverse.
I'm happy you caught that. I practiced it with Freddie before the show to make sure I remembered to say it. So they've opened up a new office down in Mexico. That is super exciting. Zoho kind of follows that hub and spoke model. They like to build offices in places that are not full of offices already. It's kind of always been a big part of their strategy. They've done this in like Texas in the US, where they've got the big one in Austin, and then offices kind of spread around in the more rural areas. I've always really liked that they do this. It allows them to access talent that otherwise you wouldn't have access to. If you make everyone move to Silicon Valley, right, you're only going to get certain people that are willing to do that.
Exactly.
So yeah, new office down in Mexico. Love to see it. I know they're working a lot on kind of the South American market. So shout out to Zoho. Really exciting.
Yeah, a lot of great talent down there, including our very own Eddie.
Very true.
So we're big fans of Mexican developers.
Righty. Moving on to our next story here. This one comes from the world of Zoho CRM. So this one is kind of a interesting one. So they're supporting more custom fiscal year formats within CRM. Um, so essentially what this is doing is they're doing a 4-5-4 calendar and then a couple of other 42 or 52 week fiscal year formats. So really all this is, most people are on a pretty normal fiscal calendar. Maybe they start in June rather than or in July rather than January, or they might be offset by a quarter. But most people basically use some combo of just the normal like Gregorian calendar months. Not everybody does that though. And so what they've done here is essentially break it out to support a variety of different formats. Right. So they're letting you kind of slice your periods a little differently within a traditional quarterly based format. So like 4-4-5, 4-5-4. I won't read every different combo here. And then they've also added some new ones where these are a bit more different than what you're used to seeing. So these would be like a 3-3-3-4 and other permutations of those four numbers. But what this is essentially quarter 1, 2, and 3 might be 12 weeks and quarter 4 is 16 weeks. So they're essentially just supporting a much wider range of quarter or fiscal quarter setups. I honestly have never interacted with a company that doesn't use some kind of standard Gregorian format, maybe offset by a couple quarters one way or the other. But the important thing with setting these up is that in like the reporting and dashboards within the CRM, you can oftentimes filter by like current fiscal year, current fiscal quarter, right? And so for some people, current fiscal quarter has just never been correct, right? Because that's not how they have their quarters set up. So they're now basically just enabling a bunch of new options here to make sure that it actually aligns with your fiscal schedule.
Yeah, just nice. Again, I think a lot of people would probably say this was something that probably should have been in there for a while now. But better late than never, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. One little note here, a tiny little note, but a pretty big important one. If you change that fiscal year type, just as a PSA, it will delete all existing forecasts. Kind of makes sense because a lot of those forecasts are based on fiscal year, right? So just expect don't delete these unless you have time to recreate your forecasts. If people are using those regularly, just do that all in one work session. And just as fate would have it, that is a beautiful segue into our next news story, which is about forecasting inside of CRM. You like that one?
That's really good.
So essentially what they've done here is added a bottom-up model to forecasting. So what a bottom-up model is essentially setting forecast targets for your sales reps individually, and then allowing those to roll up to the management targets, where previously the CRM basically supported setting like a company goal and then slicing it down to the individual sales reps. So really this is the other way of doing forecasting that they are now supporting. And so this makes sense in cases where you might have different reps that need pretty different targets, right? Due to like efficiency of how they work, maybe the market that they're in. And you might need to change specific targets based on a region rather than based on the entire organization. But if a target goes up for a region, it should go up for the organization as a whole. So they're just allowing that now, and they're going to support it in their native forecasting tool. So yeah, not anything too crazy there. Again, you can do these based on role and territory, kind of set up the numbers that you want to have matter. So deal revenue, count of deals, all those types of things. One thing that is important is that because these are going to come from users, they're going to go through an approval process, right? Or they can go through an approval process. So as a sales rep, I think I'm going to do X amount next quarter. I need to submit that to my manager. They might say, you know what, that's crazy. That's way too much. Let's lower that a little to make sure that it's more reasonable. And those will go through kind of a role-based or hierarchy-based approval process. So yeah, really nice. I mean, we don't do a lot with the forecasting tools in CRM. A lot of the times we'll bust this over into something like Zoho Analytics, but making it bottom up makes it a lot more useful, at least for me. Like top down, I'm almost always going to go to analytics, but the mechanism of allowing a sales rep to submit their suggested forecast and get it approved is pretty powerful. So I'd imagine a lot of people might really like to see this come to CRM.
Certainly more collaborative. right?
Yeah, rather than just saying, here, this is what it is. Go
Yeah.
get it. Alrighty, next story here from the world of Zia. So this story is validating Zia insights with your feedback to improve email intelligence.
Yeah, this is
So
an
using a
opportunity
CRM,
for. Oh,
yeah,
sorry. Yeah, so this is a tool that Zia can try to make some guesses as to like your email sentiment. Um, whether or not your customers are feeling positive or negative. Uh, Zia, like any artificial intelligence, is going to get stuff right most of the time, but occasionally will get some things wrong. So what Zoho has introduced is the opportunity for you to sort of add some corrections to Zia's predictions, so that the model is that much smarter the next time an email comes in. So if the sentiment analysis says that, hey, this email was pretty negative, and you look at it and you're like, no, that's a little pessimistic. Seems like a pretty
yeah.
cut and dry normal email. That you can give Zia that feedback, and it'll be that much smarter the next time something comes in. I really like, if you want to scroll down a little bit to that, why help Zia? Oh, just a little bit up. Saying that when you assist Zia with her email or give her feedback, it's like helping a friend,
It
and
is like helping Brad.
you both get a chance to learn and improve together, and it strengthens the bond between
True.
you and Zia. It's
Very
just
true.
it's so wholesome, and just
I
like
bring Zia with me everywhere that I go. We have a very
yeah,
strong bond. She's always in my
give
heart.
give Zia a chance.
One thing I do like about this is they kind of broke out like how you can correct it. So sentiment, intent, and emotion. Intent is
Mm-hmm.
a really interesting one. For some reason I may have missed that that's even something that Zia is tracking, is like the intent of an incoming email. But that is pretty darn useful. And then again, like any machine learning model, the way these work is they intake a bunch of data, they do their best, and then we tell them when they're right and when they're wrong, and that
Mm-hmm.
helps them grow and improve. So make sure to invest in your personal relationship with Zia. Let it know how it's doing. It's
Yeah,
a win-win.
yeah. So, do some gentle parenting techniques
There you go.
with Zia here. Nice and supportive. Not
Yeah,
provide correction, but not criticism.
there we go. I like that. That's what I try to do with my dog too.
Yeah.
On to our next story, we've got a post here from the Zoho developer community. So the developer community is essentially a group of people that are, doing the deeper customization, integration across various Zoho applications. A lot of these you'll see centered around CRM, of course, right? But a lot of our, Zoho developer is going to touch lots of different applications. So this one, nothing too crazy in here. This is their monthly digest, just highlighting their upcoming events. So they've got a couple hangouts, a boot camp, a learning series coming up. Wow, lots more things. I kept scrolling and I see even more. So well worth taking a look at. And then they do this resource spotlight. This is a really cool part about the developer community. It's just the sharing of the resources. So just doing some PSAs around like, hey, as a reminder that Google email sender policy is changing, and showing some of these previous sessions and upcoming events. Anything stand out in the digest this month, Greg, that you'd want to point everyone to?
I especially want to point people to the developer hangouts. I think it was that first event listed there. The thing that's really cool about those is that Zoho is facilitating the hangout, but they reach out to non-Zoho developers to create content for those most often. Yours truly included. I did one presentation for a Zoho developer hangout, and it's really cool. That you get the chance to kind of put a little bit of spotlight on people that are out there doing the work, and more importantly, if you've ever delved into Deluge, you're able to hang out with people who get it. people that can share your joys and frustrations about
Yeah.
the system. And yeah, I've always had a really good time at those developer hangouts, and I've always learned at least one new thing that I didn't know
It's the
before
goal.
about how to use Deluge before going. So yeah, I would highly recommend checking that out if you do any sort of in-house development for your team.
Awesome. Last thing I'll highlight on here just before we jump to the next story is they do also highlight some really good discussions from the forums.
Mm.
One thing that you'll learn about developers, myself, Greg, anybody doing development, is we search forums all the time for useful solutions, right? And developers,
True.
ourselves included, post useful solutions for free on forums, right? It's kind of like what we do with our code share.
Mhm.
That is the same for Zoho's forums, right? So they'll kind of highlight some of these solves, right, that people have come with. So example being like, hey, someone was struggling with, doing a webhook call from production to sandbox for testing. And so people gave them a couple methods of how you might be able to do that. How do I make this custom button on a deal page? And someone chimes in and, gives some advice. So it's an interesting thing about developer communities. They're very collaborative. There isn't a lot of like, I'm going to keep this to myself, like even a couple weeks ago, we gave out a piece of code that we implement for clients all the time. And so, big part of these communities is sharing. And so, well worth taking part if you are a fellow Zoho nerd. With that, I think we're ready to jump on into our implementation of the week.
Let's do it.
Alrighty, implementation of the week for this week was built out by our very own Eddie Gonzalez here at Zenatta. And so the goal here of this implementation was essentially to manage billing contacts in CRM via a client script just to streamline and ensure that a QuickBooks Online integration that we built out was going to work. Essentially, the big goal of this integration was that at certain points of the process, we need to be able to automatically generate a QuickBooks invoice for a particular customer. When you generate a QuickBooks invoice, it's important to associate it to the right contact that should receive that invoice on the customer side to pay for it. And so what that means is we need to designate that contact in CRM because the team that's actually running this process really does not interact directly with QuickBooks. Now, the important thing here is you might think at a simple level, well, put a checkbox on a contact and check it if it's the billing contact. But what happens if we make a mistake and there's two, right? And I check a second one. Now the script gets confused. It has to make an assumption, right? Like grab the first one or grab one of the two that it finds, which is less than ideal. So what we ended up sorting out that we're able to do here is actually use a client script to solve for this. So client scripts essentially run in the user's browser. And so they can do actions really quickly, like while a user is trying to enter or edit a field, it can stop them, it can respond with messages, it can check other data. And so we put together a client script here where whenever somebody tries to mark a contact as the billing contact, it will actually check all the other contacts that are part of that account and see if any of them are already defined that way. If we do already have a billing contact, it will actually display who that is to the user. So you can go like, hey, you know what? John Smith is already the billing contact, so you're not allowed to update this one. If it does not find any other contacts that are the billing, it will allow the user to proceed. But then in the future, if someone tried to update a different contact on that account, it would then stop them from being able to do that. So it's kind of a nice one, not like a crazy complicated client script. Some of these that we've done are like wildly intense, like doing pricing math and all these crazy things. This one's just really useful, right? Because
Well,
we build this full integration for QuickBooks. It's kind of an important concept when you're doing integrations is the integration is only going to work if the stuff that feeds into it is right,
yeah.
And so we want to put some of these process controls like earlier in the flow to make sure that we kind of proof against common mistakes, like calling two people the billing contact. Like that's just going to happen, right? Someone's going to make that
Oh, yeah.
error. An invoice is not going to get created, right? Or it'll be created and sent to the wrong person, and they have to go, send it over here, and it adds that like work, right? So putting these little checks and balances in place can be really useful just for making sure that you get the value out of building an integration like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And client script has really come a long way. something that we're using a lot more often in our solution sets as they. Although I will say that sometimes client scripting just has some weird bugs that still pop up every once in a while.
Yeah,
But when it works great.
absolutely. Absolutely. Alrighty, and with that, I think we're ready to jump on into our code share of the week. Alrighty, I'll let you take this one, Greg. I will say I saw this being discussed in our dev channel a little while back. People were talking about how do we do this. So I guess we solved it and then decided, hey, let's publish this. So what do we have this week?
Let's tell others. Yeah. So this one has to do with if you need to override taxes in a Zoho Books record, where if for whatever reason just the default taxes don't apply to a particular invoice that you're making. Maybe it's for a particular customer, or maybe a particular instance where maybe something isn't taxable, or something that normally wasn't taxable is. I don't know. Your reasons are your reasons. But if you do have to do so, two important notes is that taxes on sales orders and invoices and things like that, they're independent objects. So updating the tax amount on a record isn't just about adding or changing a currency amount. You also have to actually map a particular tax object to that tax, so that on
That's tax ID.
Yeah, so like on the record itself, it's not only this is the tax amount, but this is what this tax is referring to. Like, is this the county tax? Is this your state tax, or whatever it is? So that way, all of the reporting that you can do at the end of the year, you can see like, oh, what were all of the county taxes that we paid versus all of the state taxes, etc.
Got it.
So that's one part, and then the other part is that there is an additional parameter that you have to pass in called that tax override preference. That the one option that they gave us to use was entity level. This parameter isn't really documented in the Zoho Books API docs.
Why would it be?
Why would it be? But so this is just an additional thing that you do have to pass in order for this this API call to work. But yeah, other than that, the actual API endpoint is the same as updating. It's not a separate endpoint in any way. It's just you need to pass in the data as a list of objects for those taxes, and then including that extra parameter. So.
Very nice. Yeah, this is one where someone someday will be doing some Google searching because they can't figure this out because that parameter is just totally undocumented, and they will be so happy to find this.
So happy.
It's like the first time a long time ago that this would have been like 2019 when I was trying to make a task and I wanted to link it to a deal. And nowhere in the documentation back then did they show that $SE_module parameter that defines like what the ID needs to point to. Yeah. And I found it in this forum post, and it's like, man, I would buy you a beer. If I ever meet you in person, I will buy you a beer, because that just
made
my day.
Like an oasis in the desert. Yeah.
We'll do one of our classic Zoho. If you're listening here, please just put all the parameters in the documentation. I mean, they're there. Put them in, right? Like if it's something that can actually be hit via a REST API, it should be in the documentation. I get it with some of these things, like you don't want people doing wrong things with taxes, right? This might be like a save you from yourself thing to keep this a little more quiet, but come on, it's there.
At a minimum, when somebody somewhere raises a support ticket asking for it, and someone says, oh, somebody asked for this parameter, let that be the indicator to you, like, okay, maybe we should add this parameter of the documentation. So that way, because obviously, it's a little bit crazy to say like add every possible parameter and every possible combination of the documentation. Yeah, that's a little much, but at least when one person has a problem with it, think if 1% have a problem with it, undoubtedly at least one other person will.
Yeah, Well, my whole approach, without going down the rabbit hole, is I wouldn't, if I were the host of the API, I wouldn't want people to have to email me asking that question. I'd rather just put it
Mm-hmm.
there and not have to deal with those support tickets. So something to
Yep.
consider. But
Yeah.
they probably have their reasons.
A little cost benefit analysis there.
Yep. Alrighty. And with that, let's jump over to what's new on Zenatta.com. All right, so this is a quick write-up here on Zoho Sign. Kind of the reason we wanted to do this write-up is that they've recently added two long-awaited features. Both the permission update, where you can now create roles, create custom sharing roles, and actually set things up how larger organizations might want contract sharing to work. Previously, it was basically you are king or you are peasant, and there was no in between. You see everything or you see nothing.
Yep.
Now you can create custom rules, like, a developer can have a manager, the manager can see the developer, whatever those different hierarchies may be. It's a little interesting. I have to set it up, but it's totally functional. So once you have it up and running, you're good to go. And they also added this knowledge-based authentication. This is like when you go to sign a contract or a document, and it's like, hey, Tyler, here's 4 addresses. Which one did you used to live at? What was your first car? Which one of these have you owned? Right. And
Mm-hmm.
what that is essentially a much more secure way of validating that a certain person who's signing is actually that person. Right. Like hypothetically, if I send Greg at Zenatta.com a signed contract, he could forward that to his fiance and she could sign it. That wouldn't be Greg, right? It's an imperfect
Yep.
system. And so asking some of these questions now, she might know those things about you. So maybe a bad example. But it's just an extra step. What these do, though, is they allow larger companies to use this tool. Right? Like these are things that larger enterprises require as part of their sign management platform. So we thought, hey, be a good option to kind of go through, maybe highlight some of the pros and cons of each of these, show some of the things we love about it, some of the benefits on our side that we appreciate. And we even went ahead and highlighted one of the main ways that we implement this, which is, the CRM to writer to Zoho sign automation. Honestly, it's probably like a third to one half of our customers. We build this out for
Yes.
them. So yeah, well worth taking a look at Sign. The big thing I always like to highlight is if you're automating documents that go out, Sign is much less expensive. It's like $1.50 a document with like Adobe Sign or DocuSign. It's like 60 cents with Zoho Sign.
Uh-huh.
So if you're doing high volume automation, like very, very meaningful savings and well worth taking a look at.
Yeah. And I think the main takeaway is that, like you were saying, you should keep some secrets from your loved ones so that they can't sign a document for you. That was
Yep,
your
that's the takeaway. Yeah.
main point, right? That you were
That
trying
was
to
my
say.
main point, yeah,
Okay,
about
good,
with
good.
the full article, that's the takeaway that we're looking for,
Yeah,
is don't
yeah.
trust anybody. Yeah, life is a dark place, and no one can be trusted. That was my takeaway point. I think that's
That's
actually
right.
the last sentence in the article, but you'll have to check it out to see if that's true or false. Alrighty, and moving on to our next section here, we'll get right into our tip of the week. Alrighty, and our tip this week, coming in with this extra smooth new animated intro, is automating inventory control using scheduled workflows in Zoho Creator. This was recorded by our very own Alex, one of our senior creator developers on the team. This is actually inspired by a couple builds we've done recently. Essentially, he's going through and covering a handful of different ways that you can kind of augment the way that inventory works by extending functionality via Zoho Creator. Big ones are like, reporting out to managers on stock levels, automating some repurchasing, sending suppliers information based on what's going on your inventory counts. So well worth taking a look at. I would have sworn I got this on a better freeze frame here, but great video going through each of these kind of common builds that we do to expand functionality. There are just those handful of things that inventory doesn't do, right? Like a common one is every month we want a couple inventory managers to run an inventory adjustment. Well, great, they can do that, but there's no way to actually manage the process. And so doing that via Creator just allows you to get a little bit tighter about how things are working in Zoho inventory.
Yeah. And even if you're not using Zoho inventory, if you are just using Creator, I would still recommend checking out this tip, because if you're not as familiar with all the different automations that you can set up in Creator, this one touches, kind of all of them. You've got schedules, workflow triggers, standalone functions, just kind of all of the above. So, the process that he shows you is just as valuable as the end product that he's guiding you towards. So
Awesome.
I also hope that in future videos for Alex, that I know that he's been working on a terrarium in his spare time.
Ooh.
So I'm hoping that in some of his future videos, he might be able to have some of that lush green behind him. So fingers crossed for the next one.
Jealous of that.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You got tons of green behind you already.
It's preserved though. It's not as real as a terrarium would be. It's real moss, but not really alive anymore, as far as I understand. So
okay,
such is life. But with that, we're actually going to jump into a new section of the CRM Zen Show, which we are calling the Question of the Week. Well, look at this. Look at this little animation here coming in. So each week, what we're thinking here, we're doing the Azaz show a little differently, where Greg is going to be running it, where we are going to have each Azaz episode answer one question from our community in more detail. So we kind of felt like in the past, some of the questions get a little brushed over, right? Maybe not, we're not able to spend quite as much time on them as we would have liked. So this video, we're answering the question, how can I sync stages into the CRM without Deluge or Flow? Right? So these are the type of questions we get all the time, right? Is there an easier way? Is there a simpler way? So our goal here is to answer one of those each week for you all and kind of feature it here on the show. So this week was Greg and Lucas.
Yes, spoiler alert. The question is, how can I sync stage changes without Deluge or Flow? You can't. But the good news is we are here to show you how you can in a not super scary or intimidating way. Yeah, Lucas does a great job outlining the very simple structure of how to set up a Deluge function to make that update. So, Christina, we believe in you. We believe that you have the power within you. You always have to yes, to code those automations that you thought were impossible.
Or just pause the video and copy paste Lucas's code, and that will work too.
Sometimes that's what the power within you is.
Yep. Do a little R&D, aka rip off and duplicate. That is what we're here for. Feel free to take anything you see and just use it in your system. That is always our goal.
Yeah, but we're really excited for the future weeks where we'll have a lot more of these kind of deep dive questions for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And big shout out to Greg and Freddie for kind of driving the reformat here on the show. Let us know what you think. Hopefully you find these videos useful. I think with that, we are in the tail end here, ready to wrap it up for today. Thanks as always for joining, Greg. Always a pleasure to have you here on the show. Especially, is this your first CRM Zen Show with the new sign? I think it is.
I think so. Yeah. This was a gift from our head of operations, Josh.
Yep.
He was sick of my previous branding attempts. So he was like, I'm getting you a sign.
You're dodging saying what it was. You hung a pair of pants on a flagpole.
Well, yes.
That is what it is. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves.
That is correct. I bought a pair of Zenatta pants. They didn't fit. And so I said, well, I have to make use of these somehow. So I turned them into a pendant flag, which I thought was great. But some of our higher ups said, you can't keep just using a pair of pants to show our logo on videos. So so they got me this wonderful, wonderful little sign here, which I actually really like. So
Yeah, it
very
does look
happy
nice.
about it. It's a good improvement.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining here, Greg. I think we're ready to wrap it up for today. If you want to get in contact with any of us over here at Zenatta, just head over to zenatta.com and click on that big old book a meeting link. We'd be happy to talk to you.
And head over to zenatta.com for, just everything. We've got our resource library there where we go through all the different apps and bundles and things like that. You can also subscribe to our newsletter where you can get all of these updates straight into your inbox every week. We've got links to Club Zenatta where you can connect with other Zoho developers or users. Check out the code shares that we've included this week. And we also have links to our training program where we can get you trained up in CRM, desk, or projects in less than a week. So check it out.
Awesome. And as always, we appreciate when you like and subscribe here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you next Friday.
It was pretty awkward when my boss told me, "Hey, get rid of your pants." I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Oh, I love it.